Section K, 5,501 metres long, 337 metres, 7% missing. The vallum in this section changes from a simple ditch with 2 banks into a double ditch with 3 banks, then back again into a single double banked structure, unnoticed it seems by archaeologists. The arguments for this third bank is limited. It could be a defensive barrier initially before the construction of the wall, as it's at an entirely different altitude than most of the vallum. But the location is bad as it's at the bottom of a hill, giving it a weak defensive positioning. The alternative is that 2 ditches were required, which suggests a more practical aspect for the vallum, as the transport structure from the massive quarry which lies just at the start of the enlarged vallum, which is probably a canal before one of its banks was converted into a roadway at a later date. This is confirmed by the discovery of a milestone on the line of the vallum. Steingate in this section seems to miss all Roman camps and forts, and is positioned 1/3 down the high ground rather than on top of the hills. This suggests that it was a reused dike from a previous period in time, shown by its association with the multiple barrows of 4 laws. We have also investigated within this section the scheduled Roman aqueducts that were reported to feed water into Great Chester Fort on this stretch of the wall. What we have found is that this is in fact a prehistoric dike, and we have made a separate video to look at the details of this structure. Section L, 5,580 metres long, 1,743 metres, 31% missing. The vallum in this section changes course quite drastically, which has not been picked up by archaeologists, as there is no apparent reason for the course change within their traditional explanation. The original course of the vallum looks like it went into a river valley, which we are finding more frequent and including other Roman features such as Steingate Road. This section continues with a 2-bank alignment of the vallum, and the satellite photo gives us a good perspective of the size of the vallum's construction. We can only speculate why the vallum becomes 2 lanes after this section's quarry. The only logical conclusion is that the vallum had constant 2-way traffic, and the most effective way, rather than usual boats passing on the same canal strip, would be a lane system. This indicates that the vast amount of material that must have been quarried in the past. The other observation of this section is how modern roads have evolved from the banks of the vallum. Again, it seems logical to suggest that when the vallum finally dried up, the banks were used as roads after centuries of canal use, and the traders would naturally use the existing canal routes for transporting by replacing the boats with carts. Section M, 5,550 metres long, none missing, 0%. The vallum in this section changes course to follow the wall alignment, or is it vice versa? The road constructed on the bank of the vallum in the previous section now branches out over the countryside, separate from the vallum, and then on this section again reconnects to one of the vallum banks. Military Way is seen to connect to the same bank as the road. This would suggest that the road was originally of Roman construction, after the creation of both the vallum and Military Way. Another interesting feature is the location of the 2 Roman temporary forts. These are not connected to any Roman road system, although they are close to the wall and vallum. Moreover, a paleo channel seems to connect both forts, but it also runs from the vallum. The larger camp is called Brown Dykes, no doubt because it was on Brown's Moor and is connected to it by a dike. Section N, 5,330 metres long, 0 metres missing, 0%. In this section we see that the vallum disappears into the river valley as it approaches the Roman fort, by a place called Ventina's Well, which indicates a higher water level at this point even during the Roman period. The construction of the fort without any interconnection to the Vallum, but with the wall, also indicates that both the fort and wall postdates the Vallum. It should be noted that the wall goes through the valley without interruption, which indicates that the water levels were lower at the time of the wall's construction. This section also shows a dike coming from the quarry travelling down the course of the Paleo Channel, which predates the Vallum, as it goes further south over land. Excavations in this area show that the Vallum was flat-bottomed and contained silt and sand within the infill. The excavations confirmed that the water must have been present in the Vallum, as the silting was made up of mainly sandy silts, and the ditch still fills up with water today in wet conditions, even when we know that this is the lowest water table ever recorded in history. Lastly, we see that the banks of the Vallum were used as roadways in various forms. The south was a continuous towpath, and the north may be as an auxiliary towpath if required for very heavy goods, or as a quick road for horseback riders. Moreover, within the excavation soil samples we see the reason for the Vallum and its construction, as the ground surface is covered with iron compounds, indicating that mining was ongoing even prior to the construction of the Vallum, with the quarries that lay by the side of the canal cut to transport this material to warehouses off the Vallum or Stonegate Road in the Roman period. Section O, 5,517 metres long, 1,078 metres missing, 20%. The first Vallum section ends abruptly when it's only halfway down a hill towards the North Tyne River. This only makes sense when we add the prehistoric shorelines of the river. The second section is a small length over a hillock and then disappearing into the river, and the last section, like the first, is halfway down a hill. This can only make sense if there was water still in the river valley at the time of construction. The second section of the Vallum also seems to start immediately after the current river shoreline, but ends in another ditch at 90 degrees heading north. This looks like a presently unidentified defensive section of the Roman fort, protecting a land bridge across the North Tyne River. Consequently, this section is unlikely to have been part of the Vallum as shown on OS maps. The last part of the Vallum in this section seems to start from a prehistoric shoreline like section 1. As for Military Way, there is no indication of a separate road in this section, and we can only speculate that any road was part of the Vallum banks. Moreover, there is no indication that it crossed the North Tyne Bridge. Finally, there is a suggestion that Stonegate can be found in the south of this section up to the river as shown on OS maps. LiDAR can categorically show that this is just not correct, and there is no signs of the road over the hills or river. Section P, 4,765 metres long, 326 metres, 8% missing. The Vallum in this section is relatively stable and close to the wall. However, the east side of this section, it disappears into the river valley and reappears on the other side at a different angle, suggesting they were cut at different stages or independent of the main Vallum. Military Way is seen in small bursts and is very shallow compared to the Vallum. Hence archaeologists suggest that it's on the north bank of the Vallum, where they really just can't find it. This is the end of part 3 of 4.